right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Both Sides podcast. We're here for the second time at the Place Kangaroo Point office with the director and lead agent, Simon Caulfield. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
First time when we were here was last year. Incomplete office, completely different to what it is now. This has to be, in my opinion, the best real estate office in Oz. Like, it is unreal.
And mate, we've been to a lot of offices.
Yeah, we've been to a lot. This is unreal, man. Can we just kickstart it with this office? Because since we're sitting here on a beanbag in front of a golf simulator, if you're just listening in your car or on your phone, we are sitting in a golf simulator on beanbags. I'm not sure if, hopefully you guys don't hear it, in front of a golf simulator where maybe Simon sleeps. I don't know. But can we talk about the
I'm in
office?
trouble, so
This is the doghouse, not about doghouse. So where did this concept come from?
Yeah.
Why the saunas and ice baths and all the rest of it? Can you give us a rundown of this whole office?
yeah, when we went to Google, I was inspired by what they had to offer, and so I left that experience going, what can we do better? And at that stage, I was super fit. So training 7 days a week, fitness was my happy place, if you want to think of it that way. I was probably looking to try and aspire into building a business that was more than just us, because I think when people open real estate offices, it's hard not to be the backbone and the face of the business. And I'm like, I want this to be more than me. So this vision started to become from, let's not just go to work to be great at what we do. Let's actually go to work and have a healthy lifestyle, a healthy environment, but it's where we get the best out of each other. And I think, as good leaders always talk about, leadership starts with you, and the better you become as a leader, the better outcomes that come from within that's inside that organization. I guess the old saying of setting a good example. So I also wanted accountability, and by putting a gym there and investing the money in it that we have, I can't sit there and expect the best out of people if I'm not making that commitment for myself. So I was on that treadmill this morning at 5:30. Got in here and punched out 10K on the bike, went and did run club with the guys. Don't want to sound like a hero because I don't do that every day, but you can't ask your team to perform at the best level if you're not willing to do that as well. So the gym, the wellness center was about improvement and recovery. The golf sim was a rec space. I love golf. I think it's a great way to tie things down and just enjoy what you do. I was here with Andrew Maloof from Spire Group when we just opened it, and Andy's become a good friend, and they're a great client of ours, and we're talking about a pricing schedule, and Andy and I are arguing over $2 million in GR while we're hitting long drives on the practice course. So I think it's a nice way to sort of soften the experience. We're also a very family focused business now, and that's what Google also showed me. Everyone was able to be there. It was an all-inclusive environment. So Kev, if you join the team, your partner, if they exist, has access to the property. We've got some families with 2 or 3 children, so the kids come in. For me to walk in as a director on a Sunday and see, Rich's 2 boys that are, I think, 4 and 6, whacking golf balls on the zombie putt,
on a Sunday.
Yeah, they come in and that's really heartwarming, because I'm like, we're creating a space that exists beyond what real estate's all about. So yeah, I think we've hit the vision. It wasn't about being the best. It was about creating a cool environment that people could feel like was a second home.
There's even kids club downstairs in that.
Well, that was for 𝗦𝗶𝗺𝗹𝗃𝗹𝗃, but
And there's also a wine room coming too. You got me with that one.
yeah. I mean, wine's my sore point. I think because we're in an industry where people love high-end property, it's hard for wine and other things not to be part of that. So we wanted to create an experience where people could come in when they sell their property. I get to select something out of the cellar, and I'm very big on dates. So when we sold our last project out at 156 Oxlade Drive, every unit number, I went and matched that up with a vintage. So, the 01 got an 01 vintage up to the penthouse being 601, but unit 10, lot 10. So I like to have lasting memories. And then some of those clients keep those bottles, and they'll send a photo after and go, this is the only bottle we've kept because it's a memento.
That's cool.
So it's nice to be able to go back and have a talking point. I think in real estate, and I don't digress too much, but you get to a point where you call someone 6 months later and it's like, oh, hey guys, how you going? Are you enjoying the home? And they're like, yeah, what do you want, mate? I'm not selling, it almost comes across as disingenuine. So for me, I find I make that phone call, and I was chatting with Justine and David, who own the ground floor at 156. And Justine's like, I still love that Cristal, I've only had 2 bottles of Cristal in my life. And it's nice for me to be able to have that alignment with them, because it's not just a big purchase for them, but they actually know that we're going above and beyond. So for me, every part of this building's got a purpose, whether it's improvement for the team, whether it's an environment for people to let their hair down, whether it's the core pods and the private offices that, you know, the bigger teams can have some privacy and the sense of ownership in their own office, or it's a kids club, or it's the clients coming into the wine cellar. Like it's I guess a little bit of everything to everyone. But we've also got other tenants in the building as well. So that ecosystem of someone being able to come in here as a prospective tenant and be able to recruit or retain staff themselves and go, hey, like these are all the facilities that we have. You met the boys from Millennia, and they're actually big followers of your podcast. You know, when they saw,
Shout out.
yeah, so they saw the post this morning. They're like, "Are you really catching up with the lads?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're going to be here." You know, and you met them, and they were chuffed, and I like that's an ecosystem that has cohesion, and any ecosystem with cohesion is going to be successful.
SC, like you're at the point now where you've got the bells and whistles, like cracker setup.
We do.
You look fit as.
Oh, thank you.
But mate, can we peel it back to the beginning? How does somebody get to your position, and what was the journey like, man?
Yeah, so I had a chip on my shoulder in my early years, and you know, I look back on that, and I think being this kid from Tamworth that come from a country town, family moved a lot. Like I love my mum and dad. You know, my parents are two great individuals who, you know, frankly have done everything they can to raise, you know, three really good young men. And the one thing I feel like we missed, and a lot of people watching or listening to this might attest to this at times, is when you grew up as a kid, if you felt like you didn't have a lot, it was always easier to look at someone else and see what you didn't have. And that could be materialistic, that could be anything. And so I always used to feel like my friends would go on holidays, or, you know, they'd get to do all these cool things and we didn't. And I look back on my childhood and I'm like, we lived in the Whitsundays. Like we left Tamworth, the country music capital, and we went and did all these amazing things. And so as a young guy, I lost a little bit of perspective, being the eldest as well. You know, like I guess I was like sort of the second adult. You know, I felt a lot of responsibility from an early age. So when I got into real estate, I really had this point to prove, and sometimes that's not a great thing. So every sale I wore as a badge of honor, and was always seeking validation to be like, look, I've done it, you know. But at the end of the day, the only person that you're really up against is yourself. And there's a great 𝗦𝗶𝗺𝗶𝗹𝗂𝗧 quote out of that as well. If you're not familiar with Gilbert, he was the guy that's behind arguably the most successful sporting team in history, which is the All Blacks, and 637 games. I think he was a part of 301 tests where they've had a remarkable winning streak. And so he always talks about it's you versus you. So forget the noise around you. So coming back to that journey, I guess I always felt like I had to own a business or be a leader to have accomplished something, which was not the case in the end, because once I become a leader, people wanted to be around me because I supported them, because I mentored them, because I led with example. So I guess the early SC era was like any young lad, you know, you were out there, you know, trying to do your best in life, buying your first sports car, you know, buying your first nice suit that wasn't from Taro Cash. And there's nothing wrong with Taro Cash, but I was a king of Taro Cash for a long time. And you know, like I guess like you're always sort of materialistic validation. So when you look in the mirror, and I'm trying to give some key takeaways that people that might be new to the industry can attest to, like the only race is against you. So if you see Kev online absolutely smashing it, and he's a great agent, and he's got all this awesome social media, and life looks great, just remember that he went through that early struggle period. And if you've ever read the 7 signs or 7 phases of business, they talk about early struggle, and they talk about whitewash, and then they talk about predictable success. It took me 10 years to get to predictable success. And I want people to know that. Like, it might have looked great. Yeah. To the level where I didn't have to worry about where my bank balance was. I didn't have to worry about, was a client going to entrust a property with me? I didn't have to, like, I guess stress is different to everyone, but my stresses in the early stages were survival and validation. My stresses now are about spending quality time with the right people in my life. So, you know, there's differences, but yeah, that you know, if you've heard of like, you climb Everest and you've got to get to base camp, but everyone worries about putting a flag in a peak. You know, I think like just get to base camp and acknowledge that you've had a, you know, successful journey, and also along the way celebrate your small wins. Like there was a tragic loss the other day from a great you know, guy in the building industry, construction industry down the Gold Coast, and I can't say that I knew him well, but I know a lot of people that he impacted, and you know, I think he was late 30s, and you look at perspective in life, and one of my good mates that is down at the coastal office, Ed Cherry, you know, he obviously knew this gentleman really well, and you know, he just said to me, SC, like sometimes we just got to tell people they're doing well in life, and you know, like support people on the journey. It's like the age I was saying, if you walk into LV and you don't negotiate a discount, but then you ask your mate as a plumber to come and do work, and you want him to do it at mates rates, like. I think in life we've got to celebrate wins along the way, accept that there's going to be early struggles, and also support your mates. Like if someone's doing a new venture, like get behind them and, you know, tell them they're doing a good job. And that was the part that I probably wasn't great at in my early years. So reflection and hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you know, you do start with an early struggle. You get better at what you do, but don't be afraid to embrace the challenges. Don't be afraid to build a support network. I probably was a little bit pig-headed as well and wanted to do everything my way. And with that, you shut people out that actually are your biggest supporters. So no one's successful without a support network. That's reality.
You're really leading from the front in a lot of aspects, but it sounds like you weren't at the start and it's evolved.
Correct.
So how did that change? How did you learn? How did you develop your leadership skill set?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I put some notes down here before, and like I think when you talk about burnout and recalibration, like I've hit 2 walls in my career. One was at the 10-year mark, and one was literally last year. And I think when you start to realise that you're not a robot, like I'm driving an electric car at the moment. Yeah, because my G-Wagon's finally getting fixed from all of my careless parking in spots where I shouldn't be parking. Brisbane City Council, please don't respond to this. But
Can I just say, Brisbane roads are the worst. They're so much worse than Sydney. They're so bad.
Oh, mate, I
get lost.
I park in areas where I shouldn't, and then I end up getting parked in, and I've nudged the rear bar a few times. Let's leave it at that. But I think when you recalibrate, you know, with the electric car, you plug it in, you charge it, you get back in, and you just drive away. And I think I thought that that's what I could do for my entire career. And so as I kept charging the car, what happened was the battery wasn't charging to 100%. So over time, that battery was only charging to maybe 50%. And so I started losing that power behind who I was. And because I was an energy player, you know, big thing for me was like, you got to get in, hype the team up, you know, go to the clients. Like I'd be on the phone to everyone before 10 a.m. Hey, Kev, we've got a buyer coming through. Like this client's inquired. Like it was just energy. And then someone would come to me and they'd have a personal challenge. I'm like, don't worry, we can fix it. And I was just zapping that power, you know, and then by the time I'd get to the end of it, I think the 10-year mark was 7 years in real estate, 3 years in business at that stage. And I just realized that I couldn't be responsible for everyone. And that sucked. And I don't know if any of you are into numerology. It's something I've never been big on, but I've started through, if you want to call it a bit of like a spiritual realignment, I started looking at my numbers and I was like, holy shit, like I actually do care a lot, but I used to pretend I didn't. Yeah. And so then I started realizing that when you care about people's outcomes, you then buy into that and you become overly invested. And then that overinvestment lacks self-care. So you'd put yourself last in everything. And people say you got to be selfish to be a good business person. I don't think you have to be selfish. I just think you have to be disciplined. There's a difference between being selfish and disciplined. Disciplined is I'm not going to waver from my no drinking in July because I want to run a PB in a marathon. Selfish is I'm going to disregard everyone else's interests. I'm going to do what's best for me. Like I think it's important to clarify that. And so when I look at like the resentment, because this comes back to your leadership question, when you start to give a lot, and then you feel like you can't give anymore and you feel like you're giving the best, but you're not getting the best back as well, resentment creeps in. And then so you start resenting yourself for the time you give away and the resentment of the discipline that's not getting the results. And so you've had a couple of agents, I think, that have touched on this in the podcast. But
and where did that flow into? Was that like
everywhere.
Health? Yeah.
Mate, my life, like, I mean, I'm the first to admit it. Last year was like one of my worst years. And I can use the excuse of having a newborn and, you know, the time of recalibrating and, you know, like on face value, everyone sits there and they're like, this guy's got his shit together. But, you know, behind the scenes, it was very much like a mask of, you know, I'm doing okay, but I'm not doing okay. And so the biggest issue was, but I had to accept that. Like, you got to be aware of it and you got to accept it. So I'd sit there with the team and they'd be like, oh, you know, like life's not great. And I'm like, it's okay, you know, like, and you tell people that it's okay all the time. But then you start to realize it's like, wait a minute, are we not unpacking the real issue here? So as I started to be self-aware of my shortcomings and essentially accepting that I was failing in certain areas of life that I never thought I would, my fitness went out the door. You'd go home on a Friday night and where I might have a glass of red, you know, that led to 2 or 3. That then flowed into performance the next day. You start then missing. It's a little bit like a golfer, right? Like if you're a professional golfer and you're making cuts and the next minute you're not, you start just looking at everything going, oh, my game's falling apart. And so for me, with sleep deprivation, which there was a lot of that last year, you didn't really know where to look. And so then I actually had to take it outside of real estate and go, am I concerned about being a great leader or am I concerned about my pride? And because that's where that leadership question come from. And actually what it come down to was pride. Like I didn't want to admit that I was struggling. I didn't want to admit that I wasn't having a good time. So I know we're getting a little bit raw, but I think it's good for the
How did you recalibrate?
Recalibrate, spoke to professionals. I actually just picked the phone up one day and I met a guy and I said, hey, this gentleman's a very successful business owner and a CEO of a publicly listed company who's a client of mine. And I said, I never forget the phone call. I said, was there a day in your life where you felt like you didn't have your shit together? And he goes, almost every day. And I was floored. And I won't say, like, out of, you know, confidentiality and respect to him, I won't say his name, but this is a guy that this company would be trading fairly high up there on the ASX. You know, like he has some serious pressure, but I'd only ever seen the masked version of him. And so as a mentor, I always looked up to him. I'm like, I want to be him, you know, I want to be bulletproof. And he's like, mate, I'm far from bulletproof. He goes, I've just learned to build mechanisms in on how to deal with it. And it was that slap in the face that then was like, okay, you want to pretend that everyone thinks that you're, you know, invincible, you're Superman. But even your closest team members know that that's not the case. And so then by not being authentic, then they start adopting that same behavior. And then so what I started to see was people would mirror me. They're like, oh, well, Simon won't talk about it. Well, then why would I talk about it? And it's about that leadership structure. Like you talk about what helps you become a better leader, being self-aware. Because leadership starts with you, behavior starts with you, performance starts with you, consistency starts with you.
Why do you think it's so rare for not just agents, but Australians in general to just mask everything?
I think sometimes like we do have an entitlement factor. I think sometimes that's part of it. Like, you know, particularly if you're in a high performing industry, you're entitled to, I mean, think of the Origin, right? And I'm a New South Welshman. Like I took 8 of the guys down.
Here we
right?
go.
So, and I say this very openly, like it shits me to tears that we lost this series because we had a team that could have won it. But I really feel for Cam Munster, like for him to be put in that position. And I know that you can say he chose that, but I mean, I don't know if I could turn up to a footy game 3 days later if my old man passed. Like, I take my hat off to him and I go, that is like some unbelievable courage. And I almost felt like at that point I wanted the Maroons to win because, you know, like I just went, for me to see that guy go through that was courage. That was, you know, him stepping up, but the boys around him supported him. And then that's a lot about what Gilbert and 𝗏𝗏 talks about, like the brotherhood and no entitlement mentality. So I guess Munster knew that he didn't have to turn up on for that 80 minutes, but he wanted to be there because he wanted to be there to show that he was there for his mates, but he also wanted to prove that, you know, he was doing it for him and his dad. And I don't think he felt like at any point he was entitled to win that game. Like he turned up to win it and he had the belief to win it. And so unfortunately for the New South Wales supporters out there, we just didn't have that belief. And whether it's through adversity or it's through opportunity, I think courage is a big thing that's built into your DNA over time. I don't think everyone's completely courageous. I think you build it up with a bit of life experience. So when people expect to win all the time or not fail, I think a lot of that comes from entitlement. It's like, well, I'm entitled to be here. Like I should just get it. Everything should work well. And I think it's because we're in a protected society. Like that's really what it comes down to. Like how many people really grow up with a high level of adversity in Australia?
Yeah, not
comparative to the rest of the world.
Yeah, comparative to the rest of the world, not much.
We got great schooling, great healthcare, like low population, great weather. So I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I think like it's definitely a topic that I touch on with my new guys, like particularly because we have a younger office. So I remind them of the days when realestate.com didn't ever have video on it. And I'm like, you guys flick a video to someone now in 5 minutes and it tells the whole story. But we had bad floor plans, shit photography. I remember the first time I did twilight photos and I thought like I was a legend. I'm like, oh wow, like city views, you know.
Yeah.
And now these days it's standard. So I think when you have to build a successful environment through adversity, like if you've come from a point of struggle, you recalibrate because it's like, well, I'm not just going to be given it. So to me, that's probably a big part of, you know, our mental change. I think the best agents you've ever interviewed, right, have had a level of adversity at some point, and they've also had something taken away from them. For sure. Whether it's a listing or a client or a change in their life. It could be a significant loss as well.
What's been the biggest adversity in your life where you've grown from?
Well, this comes into like the rewards and reflections component when I look at it. So I haven't had any tragic loss yet within my family. So I guess from that sense, because we've got a younger generation, there's 3 generations within 40 years. It's quite compressed. So I'm very fortunate that all my grandparents are with us. All our parents are with us. Yeah. So when I talk to most people, that's probably a point of gratitude that I have. Like someone will be like, none of my grandparents are alive. And so for my little boy, to be able to meet his great grandparents, that's something that's like I'm pretty chuffed about. Probably loss for me is more self-inflicted loss. So I've made millions, but I've lost $1 million. That was an eye-opening experience.
What was that like, losing $1 million?
Mate, at the time I couldn't tell my wife. I was embarrassed.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, because we'd done so well, we'd grown, we'd really succeeded, and I was embarrassed that like I'd made a poor decision that through all the great decisions I'd made, and she's always like, I trust you. So when that trust is placed on you and you feel like you failed that trust, you really start to go, shit, like how do I come clean? How do I be honest about it? And she's just like, hey, for all the wins we've had, you know, we're going to lose along the way. I think she sent me something about Donald Trump going bankrupt 3 times. And I'm like, no, you don't really understand my pain. And she's like, yeah, I do, because your pain's my pain. Let's just move on. And so, you know, I think like that was a big thing for me because I was early 30s at the time. So sort of 5-6 years ago. And that taught me that no matter how tough a conversation could be, if you've got to tell your wife that you've made a poor financial decision and, you know, you've made some mistakes along the way, although my accountant tells me it's great because we can offset those losses. There's always people to tell you, make you feel better about life. But I think that just taught me that whether it's through death or through loss, you know, financially, that like life is not perfect. And I think you got to learn from those decisions. And that's made me a far more astute and mature individual.
How'd you overcome it in your head at the time? Because that would have been tough. Didn't.
Overcoming the loss. Mate, I carried that for like 2 years after. Because you feel like a failure, right? Like, I mean, I can sit there and tell you guys of all the great property deals we've done and and I'm talking like personal deals that we've done. And, you know, you can sit there and pretend like you got a crystal ball, but I think in life involves risk. So, and that actually comes back to that risk and reward is, you know, like I made a note here about emphasizing the importance of enjoying life's wins is you are going to have loss at times in life. So if you're going to lose in life, you got to accept that is part of it. And, you know, again, having that expectation, maybe if you're a perfectionist, it's harder, which I am. Like, you know, I'm that type of guy where I write down where I am today and where I'm going to be in 12 months time. And then there's like a metric to measure it. And for the first time this year, I actually did no goal planning, no goal setting. Everything was just about budgets and P&L. So it's like, what do I have to write? What do we have to do? But it wasn't goal planning. It was just, these are the numbers. I need to drop my son off to daycare every morning. That's a non-negotiable. I have to run 4 times a week. That's a non-negotiable. I have to call my clients. That's a non-negotiable. But there's no actual set goals. It's been a very weird year in that sense.
How are you finding it?
Struggling with it because I don't have the benchmark, but I'm actually enjoying things a hell of a lot more. So,
do you think that's going to help with like burnout?
Yeah, and that's what's actually helped the most. And mate, I'm also enjoying life. Like, you know, I think that's the biggest thing is I can sit there 12 months ago and tell you all the great things we've achieved, but I couldn't truly reflect on what I'd actually achieved in a meaningful way. And I actually made a really good note about this. I thought this was like the ambition trap, and I think that's what we were talking about on the phone is when you're ambitious or you have an identity crisis. Like I know 5 guys right now in real estate that are absolutely braining it, right? And I was one of these. Call it I was the 6th that would have an identity crisis that if they had to stop real estate tomorrow, they wouldn't know who they are and what they're doing. And I mean that as in mates of mine that are very, very successful. And ironically, a few of us have had this chat, and part of it was actually because this podcast was coming up and we were talking about, it was like when I did Arik, I was like, well, what am I actually going to talk about that's relevant? But without sharing those individuals, I think what we all come back to was being a parent is one of the most rewarding experiences you can have. But how do you measure that on a success level? Like, you're not sitting there going, oh yeah, hey, like my kid's added, 300 grams this week, like yours added 250. Like, and I know it sounds trivial, but that's what real estate can be like.
Yeah.
Like, you get caught in this. Oh, how many properties have you sold this week? Like, and that's unfortunately because people do come into this industry wanting to be successful financially. It's easy to focus on the numbers. I've been massively guilty of that. Like I wanted to be successful. So how do you define success? A number, a net worth, right? But when I walk out of swimming yesterday and, my son's passed his safety test and he knows how to fall in the pool and turn around and reach the edge and pull back up, I mean, that's far more important than any deal I could do this week because that's life and death, right? That's survival. So I think like the metrics start to change and then to that identity trap that you have, if everything's about you being great and successful, and then that day changes, what are you actually going to do? And I think that's a powerful question.
Yeah. So even though you're not chasing a particular, there's no clearly defined goals as such with sales and like listing targets, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
How are you now defining your success? Is it based off time that you're spending with family?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's not lose sight of the fact that we're here to run a business and I need my people to be successful. So, I mean, like my wife, and she doesn't get enough credit on this, but, gives birth, writes 2.5 million, 12 months post-pregnancy, does it all in a sleep. We joke about it. She is robotic. She's a very process-driven person. But I think, when I look at her example, she said, I'm having a baby and I don't know when I'm going to come back to work and I don't want you to set a target for me. So in our P&L, we completely removed Courtney's fees out for 12 months, which was a bit of a nerve-wracking thing because I'm like, okay, we just finished this office and, we've dropped $8+ million on it. So it's a massive investment for us. And that was probably the catalyst also for me to realize that you can't always have an expectation. You've got to just let life do its thing. Courtney has absolutely smashed it out of the park. And that's an example of if you just stay focused on what matters, not the number or the outcome, then, good things happen. And I think Sahil... It's
an art to it, isn't it?
It is. Well, Sahil 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗂𝗧 was on the urban developer panel yesterday. And he spoke about, if you just do things with great purpose, the results will tend to find you. That wasn't quite the summary, but that was what I took away from it, is if you do things with purpose and good intent, the outcome will be there. So I look at where we are now as a business. Like Michael Bacon's had one of his best quarters, but if you actually put him into this room right now, he'd sit there and tell you all the things he's missed. And that's the thing that we're trying to get away from in real estate. Like, I'm so proud of he's flipped the coin, right? Like, he just said, hey, I'm back, I'm doing X, Y, Z. And I went, mate, let's go on that journey with you. But it's more important for me, for him to enjoy the time. And you asked me a question, what do I measure in my success? Well, I measure the value I have with my team. Like, when an agent comes in and they have a win, I don't care what the value of the property is, what the GCI component is. I'm just like, how do you feel right now? I feel friggin' amazing. Okay, let's capture that moment. And then when I talk to them next, I'm like, hey, how's that going? Oh, yeah, well, I've got X, Y, Z off it. So we're getting away from a number, and I think this quarter will reflect a great level of performance if you want to look at it from a standardized point. But that's not how we're measuring it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, a lot of the times, from my experience, you carry that energy into the next thing. So if you can capture that feeling of excitement, joy, and fulfillment, that can translate into the next activity.
Well, I mean, I put down here, this was actually a really cool one because I was talking about one of the questions that you wrote me. It's like running as a metaphor. And again, I'm not normally a scripted person. I don't like scripts, but I wanted to do this to try and give some context around it. But I said, when I'm running with Krug and the Pram, who's my son, we're not chasing time. And when you go on long runs, if anyone's ran a marathon in this room, next week I'll run 70K, 70. And that's what I need to do to get, the look on Kevin's face says it all, right?
Yuck.
70. There's a guy I follow on Instagram, Alex Harvey, who does 120. So he puts me to shame. But I look at some of these guys and I go, well, how do you condense time? How do you be efficient when you're running 1.5, 2 hours at a time? And, particularly when you're doing slow runs, without getting into the boring part of running, but, there's VMO, VO2 max, there's heart rates, there's zones, all this stuff. When you start to get into being a proper runner or a competitive runner, or in my case, being stupid enough to push your son around in a pram, which just makes everything so much harder, you got to build up endurance. But for me, the quality of time is, a lot of people don't know this, but I ran the half marathon with my son because I wanted to be able to prove to him, even at that age, that like his dad had the ability to set a good example. And so my little boy comes into that gym with me 3 days a week. And when I'm on the treadmill, he actually jumps on. I put it on the slower speed, which is 0.8, and he just cruises along. And the smile on his face is next level. And I'll send a photo through to you guys so you can see when we finish the half marathon. But everyone is absolutely dying. And here I am with my son on my shoulder, and we've just got the biggest smile. And everyone's like, did you just run 21K? But that's the fulfillment or the enjoyment. And I'd love to leave everyone with like one topic is if you're not a parent, you won't quite understand this until your time comes. But if you've got a niece or a nephew, next time you're with a little kid, just give them 5 seconds of time and see what it means to them. Because all they want is like, how many times, dad, 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 mum, 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 mum. They're craving attention, right? And so that quality of time, the more quality time we spend with people, it doesn't have to be in quantity. You don't have to do a lot of it, but be present. Like when I get home, I am not on my phone. If I'm on an important phone call, I will openly say, hi, Michael and Emily, I have to jump off the phone for a moment. I'm going upstairs. I'm just going to quickly say hello to Bub and I'll buzz you back. Like I will actually stop that conversation if I've got the wrong timing. Because as soon as the lift's open into our apartment, my little boy is normally sitting there at the dining table or in the living room, and he'll just run straight over to me and give me a hug. Now, capturing that moment, I want to have that as long as possible until the day where he goes, Dad, hugging's weird. I don't want to hug you anymore. Leave me alone. But, like that to me at 18 to 20 months of age is like something that's become really, really important. So capturing moments in time and being able to reflect on those, I think is an extremely powerful thing. And no matter what you do in life, have those like little snippets, because when you are having a good day, right, you recall on those. But when you're having a tough day, it's that like little pep up that you need. They're the things that change your perspective in life. They get you out of the bad headspace of, oh, that client's just listed with the agent down the road, or the buyer's pulled out on finance, or, I mean, on my screensaver, that's one of the most memorable moments that I have with my little boy. And that's because we've traveled 5 times in 18 months. He's been overseas 5 times within 18 months. So when I pull the luggage bag out, he wants to jump on the luggage bag because all it means to him is let's go. So,
good times.
But I get to do those great things because we have a successful business, and that's the other thing. Reward comes with success. So as you become successful, don't be afraid to reward yourself. Try and make as many experiences as you can, because that's what you'll look back on once you leave this industry.
I think you're so right. And focusing on the outside of work happiness will directly influence what happens inside of work. And we were speaking a bit off camera about Michael's partner, obviously
Emily.
your partner.
Yeah.
Your partner now.
Yeah.
How important...
Oh, sorry, as in Michael as business partner? Yes.
Yeah. How important is selecting the right partner, and how much will that affect you in your work?
So my partnership with Michael is a derivative of my partnership with my wife. So Courtney and I have been working together. Courtney's never been a director within the business. She's never had a shareholding within the business. She's left all that liability to me, which is smart, ex-lawyer. No, all jokes aside. I think Courtney was supportive of me, as any good partner would be, to see us succeed. What really mattered, but was the level of respect we showed each other, the level of support we showed each other. So then when Michael came into our team, Michael's like mum and dad, and Michael's got 2 great parents, as in biological parents, but Simon and Courtney almost become by default his, we were his mum and dad. Yeah. And so through the years, Michael's been exposed to a great partnership with Court and I. So then by default, when we joined forces, it was authentic. Like, I'm one of the proudest guys in real estate when it comes to having a kid from Yeppoon that left with a couple of dollars in his pocket and drove down here and had the ambition to be a real estate agent. And now he's running a successful business with me where he gets full ownership and identity around it. And so I think the respect, the discipline, listening to each other. Like, we've changed a big dynamic within our team meetings now. So when we go in, I try and be the last to talk, because what happens is I talk, everyone else listens, and then that jades or impacts their decision-making process. So I'll be like, okay, Michael, how do you feel about this topic? Shane, how do you feel about this topic? So letting people have a voice becomes, essentially it's empowerment, right? So that's where Michael and I have really grown a great relationship, and also letting him do things that are important to him as well. Like, he's a king of social. he's also an energy guy, like letting him embrace that and, be an identity. If people think that Michael has the same ownership in Place KP as I do, or they think he's the leader of Place Kangaroo Point, I'm not precious about that. Like, I like the fact that people can express themselves. So,
And what about outside of work partners, like life partners? Because
I mean, my boss, my first real boss, if there's such a thing, I had a couple of false starts in real estate. Judy Goodyear always said to me, who you marry, who supports you is going to be a big definitive of your success. And so choose wisely. Fortunately, Courtney sent me a DM on Facebook. Just had to slip that in there, Court. And, the rest is history. I thought it was a joke by my mates, by the way, because they always used to troll me. But yeah, Court was the first to reach out. I asked her out on a date. She'll want me to validate that. But the reality was we just knew that we were made for each other. And I think that was pretty powerful. And here we are, married for 6 years, coming up in September, been together for 12, because I've been in real estate for 15, 16. So, we've had a long journey together as partners, but I think we trust each other. I shouldn't say think. We trust each other. We respect each other. We want to see each other succeed. And I think regardless of any partnership, like, boys, think of your best mate, right? You do anything for them, right? That's why they're your best mate. So that's what partnership is. Like, you're willing to put yourself second to see that person succeed.
Is it hard to separate work from home life when you're working and at home together?
Can I reverse that question? It's hard not to talk about real estate when you go home. But yeah, we don't see each other through the day. Like, I mean, you saw Courts before. Kindly, she dropped in some lunch and she's like, there you are, see you later, off you go.
Yeah.
I work with my partner, and I find that it adds more value. Like,
I love that.
It's like integrates life. It's like you grow together. You're on the same team. It's a lot more connected personally from my career.
Yeah, well, cohesion's a big thing, right?
That's what it is. Yeah,
like you think about, it's the age-old saying of yin and yang. If you're not compatible, it's not going to work. And that was actually we spoke about like foundations and early lessons, and then we actually moved through. I like this question you put down. So you were talking about alignment and like the purpose, the passion, and the present, which was one of your topics. So I look at purpose and passion. Like, Court and I are as passionate about us being successful today as we were when she was at Bond Uni getting a law degree, and I was trying to cut my teeth on $1 million deal. Like, our passion hasn't changed in that sense, but our purpose has evolved. So our purpose now is very different. Like, Courtney is a mentor unofficially to a number of young ladies in real estate, but she doesn't make a big deal out of it. Like, she respects the fact that someone sees value in what she can offer, and she provides that. I'm a little bit more of a face to the business because, I decided to open Place KP after my departure from New Farm, because Place were on this expansion mission. So I saw that as a chance for me to be able to, I guess, the attraction agent topic that Tom Penos always talks about. But I didn't want to be an attraction agent just to build business. I wanted to be an attraction agent to grow other people. So if you look at most of our top performers in our office, they've all got their own identity. Like, people will go, I know Michael Bacon from Place KP. I know Michael Hatzifotis from Place KP. I know Rebecca Russell from Place KP. It's not from Simon's office. And I think that's what I love about that repetition. Because if people are predicated on Simon and Simon only, then the day Simon's not here, what is the business really worth? And so, touching on Rebecca for a moment, we helped her, get into a position to buy her first property a couple of years ago, which was $1 million home in Camp Hill. Now her and Mike are out there with their young son looking to buy a home, up to 3 times that value. And that's in a short 4-year period. Stuff like that makes me so happy and gives me great validation as an owner in a business, because we're helping people improve their lives, which is why I've always had that little caption on my Instagram, it's to leave people in a better place than you found them. Would I say I'm perfect at that? No. Is there areas of improvement? Absolutely. But I'm really trying to say, if your purpose today was X and your purpose was Y, how do we buy into that to make that a reality?
What do you think are, like, let's say you've established what the X and Y is. What are the processes and activities behind that?
Give me a topic and put
in
me on
real
the spot.
estate. So, for example, how does somebody become a 500 GCI agent to a 1.2 or a 2 million GCI?
So, 1, you got to show them the pathway. 2, you got to show them the expectations. Right, so you want to be $1 million fee writer, you're going to have to work harder than a $500,000 fee writer, unless you can find a way to do double the GCI with less effort. Which, I mean, I'm a bit of a, I'm not the best example to use today, because I'll write 2.5 in fees, and I'll do roughly 25 deals a year. You know, I'm not doing as many of the smaller deals. You know, you do a sale of a property for $10 million. It's not hard to work out the maths behind it. You know, so like I think that model for me is not how I replicate it now. It's not like watch me and then go and multiply. I look at Rebecca. She's got a great business where she sells $800,000 townhomes and she does like 40 of them a year. But we've just taught her how to be the go-to agent. Then I look at 𝗦𝗂𝗧, and 𝗦𝗧𝗧 does 100 deals a year, and you know he's the king of South Brisbane, and you know we've built a great media and marketing presence for him. And then I look at 𝗦𝗶𝗺𝗵𝗂𝗃, and Michael's the guy that puts a reel on social media and gets 1 million views, and you know everyone has the hype and wants to be a part of it. So I think that's the cool thing. Like you've got to know what that person's capability and strengths are, and then you've got to go and model that up to a system. So we don't have like a single blueprint, but we've got a pathway, and case studies are the other thing.
What do you do for yourself? How do you like?
Personally?
So let's say you can look at Michael and see his
Yeah.
strengths and weaknesses and can create a blueprint with him together.
Yeah.
How do you do that for yourself?
I do 2 champagne events a year, and I have my circle of influence, which are all saved as favorites on my phone, and they've all got a little diamond next to them, diamond emoji, because that's the highest value or worth as a gemstone. And so I put them in there, and that's just my call session.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So like I called one of my clients yesterday, and I said, I saw you out walking a dog. You know, how'd the Europe trip go? He goes, mate, awesome. I said, any closer to the house being complete? And he's, no, not really, but you can help me on this. We're a JV in this project. My mate's got 7 townhouses to sell. Can you go and help him? They're over in Camp Hill. So like that to me is just, I just rinse and repeat the circle of influence. I guess also being a good local, and like I wasn't sure if we were going to go down this path of talking like real estate process, but if you're a great local, just be really, really good in whatever you do. So if you've got 3 kids, genuinely and sincerely get involved in the school community. I love my golf. So most of my clients that are golfers, I'll take them out to the Grand, and that's on me. I'll go and do a Sunday session with them, and they get to be part of that journey with me. So if you're a mum that, I don't know, has like a friendship group, or, you know, you might be a client that's a little later in life and, you know, you're not as savvy on the socials, but you're part of, you know, a book club or whatever it may be. Like there's no right or wrong. I just think be present and be a good local in whatever you're doing. It doesn't mean having 20 bus signs and all that nonsense. Like I just think be present, be reliable. For me, some agents in our business write very few transactions, but write big GCI. And I've got other agents that are doing a couple of million fees, but they're doing 100 deals a year. So I think that's the beauty of real estate. You don't have to copy one model.
So, Simon, I often see you in those, you know, top 10 sold properties of Queensland and all that sort of stuff.
The Prestige AU.
Yeah, that one. Did you start at the top end, or
No.
did you build up from?
My first sale was 16 Athlone Street, 𝗦𝗶𝗺𝗹𝗱 for 555,000. I thought it was a legend because I listed it at offers over 550 and sold it for 555. Did a contract subject to every condition known to man. Had an open home Saturday morning. 30 creeps turned up. Got abused by 29 of them, apart from the bloke that put the contract in. Learned my lesson pretty quickly, but you know, I didn't have great leadership back then, so I just did what the sales certificate course told me to do, which is generate offers, put them in writing, and present them to the owner. So that was my training. Went to a Michael Sheargold course. Michael was great at body language, you know, reading people, the ratio of 2 ears, 1 mouth. I think Judy O'Day was talking about that the other day, and just being present. And so that then made me realise that I was capable of doing more. And then I worked out that I could work 40 hours in a week and do, 5 $1 million listings back then, versus I could work 80 hours in a week and try and chase 10 $500,000 listings where there was more agents at that level. I was working double the time for half the sale price, and I'm a mathematician. So pretty quickly for me, I went XYZ equals less income. So I just flipped the switch and changed it.
So did you just immediately change the area that you were working? Or?
So I was in New Farm. I went to Kangaroo Point. I went and put sold signs out the front of 10 buildings that I didn't have listings in. Put them all up. Had people starting to think that I was selling all those properties. Put a flyer out saying no one sells more $1 million properties in Kangaroo Point than Simon Caulfield. Ended up getting a few listings off it. Ended up getting abused by a few of the building managers and owners. All my competitors were like, how did this guy just get all those listings? Created perception. and then used to call a developer whose safety fence fell down every day because I lived on the corner. I said, hey, mate, council are taking photos. You're going to get fined. And he's like, shit, not good. So we changed it all up. And, basically I won a lot of business from there. And then that put me in as the number one agent in KP. Then people started seeing me selling developments and apartments, and the rest was history.
So if you're a new agent starting or has started out and you're at the lower end of the market, if you want to shift to the top end of the market now, what would you do differently to crack it?
Well, I like to use an analogy, right? Is if you want to play for Origin, how do you get selected?
Play extremely well.
In club footy, right?
Yeah.
So if you play for the Broncos, you got to perform week in, week out. Yeah. If you want to be in the top in your area, price point, property, whatever it may be, you got to be able to prove it. And so when you say social proof, anyone can go out there and say they're good at what they're doing, right? But the real proof in the pudding comes from results. So for me, everyone thinks I'm like the project king, and that's all I do. I actually sell a decent amount of existing resi properties. But the reason I built that reputation is because when you call a valuer, they're like Simon Caulfield sells off the plan. When you call a bank, like I've had CBA and ANZ sit me in a board meeting with 10 executives and I'm the other person on the side of the table and quiz me for an hour on why they should give senior debt to one of their developers. Like that's the level of trust that you have with those people. Now you can't fake that. Yeah. I can't sit there and go, oh yeah, boys, I'll get $95,000 a square meter when the going rate's 30. Like you can't fake it. So I think if you really want to get to the top, right, you've got to have the proof in the pudding. If you just want to get better, like if you're at the start and you want to improve, fake it till you make it. And I think it's really important to delineate the two. Once you get to the top tier, like think of Alex Phillips, Gab Rubenstein, Marcus Chiminello, right? Like any of the greatest agents that I can think of that have really strong presence in their markets, there's no faking.
What's the key differences between selling resi to off the plan?
You sell a dream when it doesn't exist.
With off the plan.
I mean, that screen sold a few apartments recently. I actually had a client in here yesterday showing them a $13 to $14 million sub penthouse. And I said, well, that's the view. That's the size of the living room. That's the size of the bedroom. That's the size of the...
Yeah.
What about in business, SC? I'm pretty interested to hear your perspective on what advice do you have to grow the business? And
what advice do I have to grow the business? That's a cracking question. I would say, do you want to grow the business firstly?
Yeah.
And why do you want to grow the business?
So the reason I want to grow the business is to create more time freedom to focus on the things that I'm more productive in.
Great. So you want to give yourself more free time.
Yep.
And you want to be able to spread a bit of the love between a few people. So to do that, you need to hire 3 top agents, have a team leader in your property management business. So you've got to get clear on how that organizational chart works, because people are always still going to come to you if you're uno numero. Like, and that's what I've learned the hard way is, you can have everyone in the team, but if you don't know how to delegate. So the organizational clarity comes from 2 pillars of success, right? And so you've got to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So for me, where we built a great team now, we've got Mandy as a team leader. We've got Shane as our BDM, but also a partner in PM. Michael's my business partner in the sales. And then Courtney's by default, Courtney owns everything. So she's a real business owner. She owns everything. I just rent it. But I think the key thing is you've got to understand the purpose. You've got to understand why you're doing it and where you want to go. And then everyone's got to be able to have buy-in. So you could hire a great lead agent who's a great second in charge, right? And I used to have one of these guys that worked in our office, and he was never officially a leader, but you do dialogue training, he was there. You did call sessions, he was there, right? So I think when you think about the roles and responsibilities, you've got to be clear on what you want and how you're going to do it. You can't just expect to go out there and hire someone great. We've had heads of growth, we've had sales managers, all that nonsense. At the end of the day, I just realized that most of that shit doesn't work. And sorry for those out there that have got it really, really well down pat, because if you can do it, you're doing better than I am. But I feel for me, the best examples of leadership come from the people that are within that business, but setting boundaries as well as going, hey guys, I do 6 prezos a week with the team. So pretty much I know that 6 1-hour sessions in my week, I'm likely to be going out. Kev will go, hey, SC, I need you to help me win this penthouse. So I'll sit there and I'll help Kev win that penthouse.
So SC, I'm 27 at the moment.
Yes.
You've got 10 years on me.
Yeah.
What paradigm shifts have you had between 27 to now, which if you could tell your 27-year-old self would give you the biggest leverage or growth
Great question.
in business?
So 3 things. You need to listen, and you need to listen intently. So I think over the years, I've always been quick to give an answer, but that answer is not necessarily the answer that will actually resolve or improve the situation. So when you listen intently, you tend to not only repeat the question or the topic that's been asked, but you'll then get more buy-in. And a lot of the time, that individual or that situation will partly resolve itself. So a great lesson, and this actually applies in the real estate as well. But if you've got to give the sole answer and the sole solution, that's probably a great level of evidence that, you haven't actually listened to the problem in the first place. So a classic example of that was I had an agent that wanted to grow a team. I didn't actually really listen to the reason why they wanted to grow the team. And this is in our early years. So I just went and added a leverage agent on. Their business went backwards by hundreds of thousands because they weren't ready to lead that person. And then I'm sitting there going, well, Kev, I got you the associate. Like, what's wrong? Like, why aren't we performing? And so then a problem came out of an opportunity created a problem, which then in the end set that person back. And that actually took us nearly 12 months to repair it. So that was a classic example where I just asked why.
Why?
Yeah. What do you actually need that person for? What's going to change in your business today? How do you think that's going to improve your business in what you're performing, and what area of the business are you looking to improve? I would have then been able to work out pretty quickly that what they were great at was listing and selling, and they didn't need someone else's help. So that person became a distraction. I think point 2 is have 3 people in your corner. So
3 people in your
people in your corner. So we've all seen a boxing match at some point in our life, whether it's live or on TV. You have a trainer.
Me?
You have a coach.
Yep.
Right? And you typically have a manager. Yep. The manager helps promote the fight. Right, the coach gets you into a position where you're fit enough to actually fight the fight, and the trainer's the guy that's patching your eyes up and putting the mouth guard back in before you go out for the next round. In real estate, we need to have those support networks there. The manager's not going to teach you how to throw a punch, but he's going to make sure that you get paid for it. Right, the coach is going to show you how to punch, but he's not going to be the guy that's putting your mouth guard in.
Do you mind if I write this down?
You can, yeah, and you can even record it if you want to. Now, I'm not a big boxing fan. I don't mind boxing. I probably tend to prefer UFC. But the reality is, irrespective, you've got coaches and you've got people in that silo. So when you go back to your team of 3, think of boxing, the analogy. You've got a manager, you've got a trainer, and you've got a coach. Each of those people wears a different hat. Now, I look in my life from a financial standpoint. I didn't get a wealth creation advisor until I was in my early 30s. So in that time, that was not only where I made a lot of good money, but I also lost that $1 million. That wealth creation person would have stopped that poor decision, or at least helped slow it down, right? Then you think about, so they're the manager. Then you think about the coach. Always have a coach. Like, why wouldn't you?
Who's your coach?
So I've got a couple of coaches, and I knew you were going to ask that question. I use, and this is, there's nothing to hide here, but Shane Smolin from a mentorship.
Champion.
Legend. You had him on
yesterday.
Absolutely. Not only is he a good bloke, he drives great cars, and he's a very intent listener, by the way. If you talk about listening, that guy knows everything. I like Shane in my corner because he's not afraid to tell me what I need to hear, but he also has a solution that gives me a thought-provoking idea to be able to improve my position. He never gives me the answer. And he does a lot of work with 𝗦𝗶𝗺𝗪. He does a lot of work with Peter 𝗬𝗪𝗠cy, some of the top guys down in McGrath. There's not a business that he's not a part of that he doesn't have some type of influence in that isn't, helpful in some way. Judy Goodyear was one of my past coaches. She was my business, my principal for, I think, 7 years. So having that person in your corner, and then you need someone that's almost a personal, whether it's a PT, whether it's a mate that, gets you out of real estate. It's having someone that can sit there and share the wins with you. That could even be your life partner. I'd say for a while, Courtney, if you want to stick to the boxing analogy, was almost my trainer. Okay, when I'd have a bad day, she was pulling the mouth guard out and going, hey, let's just breathe for a moment, right? And then when you go back to work tomorrow, next round, you're good and you're in the right headspace. So I think use that analogy as you will. But that's point 2 in business ownership. And I think point 3...
That was really good.
Thank you. Hopefully I give you one good thing today. I think the final part is you've got to remind people why, and this sort of goes back to number one in terms of the why. I'll change it up. Point 3 is really about purpose in terms of the growth in what you're doing as an individual. Like I think one part's helping people solve problems. 2 is being able to build a team around them to support them. But 3 is also like if you've been in this industry for a period of time, like what is it that's really going to move the needle? And Josh Fegan, who's another good coach at Place, he always talks about that. He's like, if you're not moving the needle in some area of your business every year, what's really the point of going back and doing the same thing over and over? So this year it might be, I want to list more properties over 10 million, or I might want to do more auctions, or I might want to have a better clearance rate, or whatever that.
What is yours personally?
Well, mate, I didn't have one this year. So, so personally, yeah, no, like, mate, I'm very authentic when I say, if I wrote 2 mil this year or 3 mil this year, right, as long as my break even was covered for what I was to contribute to the business to validate my position, that's all that mattered. You know, mate, we'll settle a silly amount of units in the next, call it 90 days. We've also just won 2 project pitches where each of those is like a $3 to $3.5 million total sellout in terms of fees. So like that to me is not a given. Again, I don't expect that, but it's like I look at what we've earned and I go, well, that's going to require a lot of my resources and time. So I just know that if I keep doing the right things, those things will happen. As an office, I want everyone who wants to improve to be able to show me in 3 areas of their life where they've actually had substantial improvement. So with Rebecca buying a home, or, you know, Michael getting to his next point where he's just bought a house and doing a renovation, or Richard's running 42Ks on Sunday at the Sunshine Coast Marathon. He's never ran anything like that. I think the longest is 21. So we'll be there supporting him. It could be insignificant to you, or it could be significant. That's irrelevant to me. It's about just seeing them succeed. I've got one lady in our office that unfortunately has some fairly challenging health conditions. And, you know, to keep it simple and to maintain her privacy, what I would say is seeing her be able to come into the gym and the wellness centre and improve her quality of life, how do you measure that? So that 1%er that we talk about, 1% better every day, for her, that's just about, in a lot of ways, survival.
Is that the best way to retain top talent? Because I know in real estate, once agents hit a certain level of success, they start to look at, you know, offices or doing their own thing, that sort of stuff.
Well, like we've got one of those conversations happening right now. Like it's a live conversation, and you know I've been, you know, in terms of like supportive in terms of the decision making process. We've provided them an avenue with us. We've provided them an avenue to support them if they go down that path where they choose to do it on their own. I don't believe anyone owes you anything, all right? So if you sit there and go, well, you owe me, that's never going to go down well, right? Like if my managing directors of Place said that to me tomorrow, I'd sit there and, you know, probably think differently about our relationship. So you're not there because you owe people, you're there because you want to be there. So the value's been added, then people won't leave. But it's a reality. It's a little bit like tax and death, right? People are going to come and go. Have I gained some great people in my time as an owner? Absolutely. As a business, have I lost some great talent as well? Absolutely. I think how you deal with it and the way that you resonate with that change, right, speaks a lot about your character. And there's one great operator that you've interviewed by the name of Dane Atherton, and I think Dane spoke about that topic with one of his key guys leaving. And I actually think Dane runs an exceptional business and is a really good human being, you know, like authenticity. Yeah, it just like it speaks for himself. But when you look at Dane's attitude, does he give a shit about his team? 110% he does. Like, he loves that crew. He also doesn't sell. So, you know, there's a revenue requirement as well for him to make that environment great, because he's not out there contributing to the general costs and overheads of the business. But his care factor outweighs any return that he gets, and that's why he's retained those top talents. So I think any great business, whether it's mine, Paul's down the road at Place Kangaroo, the boys across the river in the yellow and white, Dane's office down at Coastal, wherever it is, top talent stays because you give them a reason to stay. Yeah. But at the same token, if you flip that switch, you can give them a reason as quickly to stay as they do leave. So look after them. Yeah. Is ultimately it, right?
Look after people.
Just show them that you want them to be there. And if you want them to be, I mean, I'd never leave a business if I was supported, if I was cared for, if I was recognised. I mean, that's my criteria. If I wasn't Simon Caulfield, director of Place Kangaroo Point tomorrow, and I was working in your business, as long as you do those three things, I don't want you to like fluff it and, you know, be fake and unauthentic. But if you recognize my wins when I have them, you know, if you're there to support me when I need you, like think of it this way. The most challenging time in either of your lives, right? What you really needed at that point was someone just to be there.
I think that's
when you need people the most.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely the reason why, like, you know, there's agencies that will try to throw me in office and I won't leave Manor.
Yeah.
I just won't leave for that reason.
But see, people think that's loyalty. This is the confusion. People call that loyalty. It's not loyalty. It's because he's not giving you a reason to leave, which I'm being tricky with words, but because you love what he's done, right, why would you go?
Correct.
So people say that's loyalty, but to me, that's just because he's doing the right things by you.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you know what? Michael Bacon last year had 3 amazing opportunities outside of our brand. 3. And I sat down with him, and I can say this, you know, as authentic as I can be on camera. Was that one of the toughest conversations I had last year? Of course it was. Not only was I raising a newborn, you know, we had changes in our life. I'm like shit, like
Just on this building.
yeah, you know, my work son's leaving, you know, like, and not that he'd said that, but you know, that the greatest thing out of it, Bob, was I was like, he's actually had the courage to come and have that chat with me. So I should, in return, be supportive for him. And I encouraged him to go and pursue those opportunities. I encouraged him to have those conversations. I said, ask the hard-hitting questions. And he goes, what are they? I said, here they are. Like, I literally gave him a blueprint. And, you know, if any of those potential directors are listening to this podcast, which they probably will be, do you know the reality is it wasn't that they didn't offer him anything better than what I had. They didn't give him a good enough reason to leave, because at the end of the day, he felt supported. Right, whenever he needed me, I was there for mentorship. And most importantly, I recognised him and celebrated his wins. Now, you know, at no point was there ever a negotiation like, you know, you have to be a partner to stay, or it was about, what do you want? And when he came to me, he goes, mate, I always wanted to work for you, but you said we'd work together. And I said, 100%. And he goes, well, can we actually do that now and take that to the next level? And at that point, I knew his maturity as a business owner, right, was to another level. I knew at that point I was inheriting, that's my golf clubs with the shitty case on the bottom. No, you didn't have to. But I learned at that point, that was one of the greatest learnings in my business relationship, because, you know, I was like, okay, I supported him and he supported me, and we gave each other great validation in why we would continue to work together.
So once selling principal or directors of a real estate agency, they get to a certain point, they can go one of two ways. One, they stay as a selling agent.
Correct.
Or two, they go down, like, they become like a Shane Smolin type, where they're
call it the
overseeing
manager.
business. Do you think you're going to stay listing and selling forever? Do you think there's a point where you'll transition?
I love that question. So we call that player and coach, right? So you're either a player or the coach. I'm happy wearing both hats at the moment until
Captain.
Correct. I like that. Until one of those hats falls off. So I think in my future, one of those hats will get knocked off, because someone in the business will come in, and that could be Michael, that could be Courtney, but someone will take that hat and go, you no longer need to wear that. I'm going to take that because I can do it better, or I can add better value. And if you look at Michael and my business right now, Michael's out there really on the promotion front, but I'm out there looking after the team, making sure, like, the 6 appointments per week. I mean, Rich Willett just texted me before. I am oozing at, like, the opportunity to get this deal tomorrow, this listing. It's one of the biggest penthouses in KP, and it's an older building that we've never been into. And I'm actually telling everyone that, and good luck trying to beat me and Richard, because Richard's a legend and I've got the track record. No, I'm joking. I'm being a smart ass. So you can post this tonight. Good luck. I'll even give you his number. No, but the thing is, Richard has followed this guy up since the day I put Richard in contact with him. And so when Richard texted me and said, I need you to cancel your dry needling tomorrow, which is like my 1 point of relief, you know, because I have a chronic neck pain, can you do that? And I was like, mate, if you think this is worth it, right, we've got 45 minutes, let's go and win the game. And, you know, and I love the fact that that's how much it means to him, that he knows that one of the 3 points in the week that I've got some genuine personal time, like, he needs me to be there. And so the point of the story is to be able to support him. That's the coach role, but I'll probably also be the player, because they'll want me as part of the listing. But there will be a day where someone will just go, hey, you're such a good coach, we want you to stay as a coach, and we might have a big enough business that I need to play the Dane, the Shane, whoever it may be hat. You know, you look at Hayes over at New Farm. Ray Watt Newfarm, and, you know, he's been an exceptional coach for a long, long time now. You know, his job is to help people grow and sustain them. It's not to go and write the fees, but he can substantiate his involvement and success because he is the coach. And sometimes you do have that option of a player coach for a while. I just don't think it's sustainable long term. And this goes back to the specialist versus generalist comment. Like, if you're a generalist of everything, but you're a specialist of one thing, you're always going to be more successful in the long run because you're focused on one element and you do it really, really well. If you try and be everything to everyone, at some point you're going to fail. And I went through that last year.
Do you pick what you're good at, or do you?
Yeah. So, I love this story about Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods, right? Because it goes back to when Tiger was in his heyday in the early 2000s, and Phil was a little bit older than Tiger. And everyone's like, Phil, you got to get better with your iron play. You know, I know I'm talking golf here, but you got to hit more greens. You got to do this and that. But Phil had the most unbelievable short game, right? What Phil did was Phil just got better at his short game. And so when Phil's won 3 green jackets, which is one of the most iconic trophies you can get by winning the Masters, he actually used to give Tiger the greatest run for his money at Augusta because Phil's short game was just so amazing. You could put him behind a tree, behind a rock, behind a sign, whatever it was. Like, he would make up and down for par. So at no point was Phil trying to get better. Yeah, he was improving, but like, he just stuck to his strength and he was good at it. You think of any great basketballer, any great footballer, anyone that comes to mind in any sport, they will be known, like Steph Curry, what's he known for?
3 points.
Banging 3-pointers. I mean, do you think he's ever going to care about being rated for his slam dunks or rebounds? It's not who he is. Can he do them? Yeah. But like, he's reliable in one area. So I think whatever you do in life, just be great at it.
You've seen Michael, you know, explode on social media.
Correct.
How important do you think social media plays a part to agents' businesses these days? And I think I asked this on Michael's podcast a bit. Like, a lot of agents are very hungry for social media.
Yeah.
They might see us and go like, like that. But
Yeah.
how important is it?
Well, is social media a support mechanism or a hindrance?
So it's how you play it.
I love it. Yeah, because I mean, for me, it's a hindrance. Having to be on socials, right, is actually a challenge for me. Like, the fact that you guys tag me, I've got a notification, so I know I need to jump in. That's my way of responding on Instagram. But if not, like, you know, my mates will tell you, they'll send me a message and it stays unread for 3 days. And I'm like, you got my mobile number, just text me.
Yeah.
You know, but like, so I'm not playing it down because there's so many great agents that do it well. But I guess for my network, my top 3 developers don't even have Instagram accounts. Well, that's probably a good way to answer it. Like, think of Charles Malik from Fortis. The guy's got $2.2 billion under managed funds. Do you think he's on social media?
Probably not. A couple of
And I'm not
big
saying that
blogs
it's not right for people, but I think pick your audience. Yeah. Whereas like for Michael has won amazing home listings over other great agents because he's been able to offer something that they haven't.
Yeah. How important do you think AI will play in the real estate space?
I don't know if my phone's here, but my other phone, thank you. Is it on the back? No, it's not. I've got a little black AI recorder, which I've started to use in our meetings. So I just flip a switch. It looks like a battery pack, and that records and transcripts everything for me. I use it for the purpose of a meeting. So I'll sit there and go, Michael and Emily, today we're going to run through X, Y, Z. Just so you're comfortable, I'm going to run through this with this transcript. It's actually going to send back to the ladies. We're going to detail everything out of that. And it pulls together an entire A to Z of the process that we're going to run through. So I just converted a property to auction the other day. It's a $12 million house. You know, when I'm not meant to give price guides in Queensland, but I'm just giving some ideas of where the last comp was, just in case OFT are watching. So it's a $12 to $13 million home based on comps. So I encourage you guys to go to auction, spoke through all the reasons why. I've got 2 new team members. So I took the opportunity to record that component of the conversation so then they could understand.
Oh, so you do it with your clients?
Yeah, why they could. So I literally sat there and I was like, okay.
Good.
Yeah, so then when the girls get it, they're like, oh, great, this is why we're doing it. Because I've got one young lady that's left Gucci who's been there for 4 years, done an amazing job. She works with Courtney. And then another one of our young ladies work with another agent within the organisation. But because we do things a little differently, rather than assuming that they know the process, I'm able to give them the entire transcript of how it works. So they don't have to sit there and listen to a voice memo for 45 minutes after I've been in that meeting, it just condenses it into, and it'll literally say speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3. So you've just got to make sure at the start you work out who the first 3 people are, which is pretty easy to work out. And then from there, it picks everything up. I paid $499 for it. Court's got one. I've got one. Don't know if Courtney's using hers. She probably doesn't think she needs to, but it's a game changer.
How do you train your staff or coach your staff when you're out listing, selling, doing like handling the business? How are you training your staff on a consistent basis? Are you getting coaches in? How are you spending that time?
Yeah, so we do get coaches in. Can I ask you a question? Because you're in the game as well. What's your team structure look like outside of you as a lead agent?
Just to associates now.
Okay, but when you say just to associates, those 2 people would play an important role in your business.
Yeah.
Do either of them lead generate?
Both.
Okay, so where do you reckon they've learnt the lead generation from?
Myself. Gotcha.
So if you look in a mirror, you're going to get a reflection. And whether you like that reflection or not, what you see in that mirror is what they're going to see in that mirror. So if you want a gun prospector, they're not going to be a gun prospector if you haven't set the example. We do a thing called Wolfpack on a Friday. If you understand the mentality of a Wolfpack, the strongest are at the front and the back, and everyone's in between. The reason we do a Wolfpack every Friday is I want the newest, freshest, least experienced person to come into that room and realize that although the strongest might be at the front and the back, everyone's got the same challenges. We all have price objections. We all have commission objections. We all have marketing objections. We all have finance crashing deals objections, you know, so no one's immune to any problem, but we all talk about it openly and we work through those processes. So I'll say, what's your greatest challenge for this week? What's your greatest challenge for this week? If we don't have any topics, I'll use one of mine. That's a problem. And again, you're welcome to have our agenda for our Wolfpack.
I would love that, actually.
The greatest thing is it can be used in any business. So if you look at law firms, you'll have the head partners, but then you'll have the the senior partners. You'll then have the associate partners. You'll have the associates, and then you'll have the juniors, right? They all sit there and talk about a private matter, a legal matter. So for us, everyone should be privy to it, but no one should be made to feel like they're silly or incapable because they've got a challenge. And what I find is it's the people that are willing to learn, they're the ones that ask the best questions. It's normally the most experienced that forget about it, that they sit there and they're like, oh, I haven't done that in 5 years.
Where do young agents go wrong the most?
I just think they have poor expectations of themselves. And poor expectations are, I'm going to list 20 properties in my first 6 months. I'm going to, make X amount of dollars. Like, do you know in life, when you're a kid, in your first 5 years, you got no expectation. Like my son doesn't have an expectation at 9 o'clock when he goes to swimming that he's going to be able to paddle for 5 meters or, he's going to be able to do a safety spot, drop and roll. Like he's just learning. Yeah, and that's our job as a parent. It's to build discipline and teach. So I think in real estate, if the first 5 years of a child's upbringing is to learn, would not your first 5 years in your professional career be to learn? And I'm not saying you stop learning at 5 years, but we're too quick. Like, I don't want to keep going down that trip down memory lane, but I was the biggest self-punishment to my own business because I never thought I was good enough in my first 5 years. I was always like, you haven't listed enough, you haven't sold enough. Like that bloke's done 7 listings and then that bloke's been in it for 21 years. Like you just self-criticize them and you hurt yourself in the long run. So that's where young agents or inexperienced agents, I think they set too high expectations. They listen to the wrong people. They get distracted with everything else. They don't stay in their own lane.
What about the 38-year-olds? Where do they go wrong?
How long have they been in real estate for?
People over 10 years.
Yeah, I think if you're in your 30s and beyond, your purpose changes. And I think that's where I don't like the term midlife crisis. Like one of my mates was talking to me about that the other day and he's like, I think I'm going through a midlife crisis. I said, why? And he goes, oh, this is where I'm at. I said, mate, your purpose has changed. Like when you were 21, you were out there drinking beers and, out till 5 o'clock in the morning, now you're married with a couple of kids, you've got a great career, but like your alignment and everything you're doing is different. And I think people go wrong because they lose perception or perspective of where they are. Like most people think they're worse in life than they really are. I think that's it. We always are quick to self-criticize. Like, oh, he's got the New Year's, he's on, I don't. Or like, what's it matter?
Sounds like just playing your game is key.
Staying in your own lane.
I'm only repeating. Mate, anyways.
Sorry?
You're wearing Pradas anyways.
Mate, I bought these 2 years ago and they're the comfiest pair of shoes I've ever owned. Also, I love my Asics, mate, when I'm running. So,
last question for you.
Yeah.
Shane Smolin having an influence in your business. What's the most important lesson he's given you?
Wow. That's an epic question. I think what I've taken away from my relationship with Shane is the legacy that survives you is a definition of the time and effort that you put into the business while you had the opportunity to run it. So if you're here for 1 minute or an hour or eternity, whatever you're doing, you've got to be able to make good productive improvements in everything, in every aspect of a business to be able to leave a great legacy behind you. And, everyone talks about, how great his sellout was when McGrath floated. Do you know what really is the definition of his success in my mind? Is the fact that so many of those operators are still working within the still working within the McGrath network today, and they run equally successful businesses. So it's the effort you put in, right? It's the belief you have in the team. It's the processes that you build that builds the legacy for what people know you for after you're long gone. And if you think about what he's succeeded in, the reality is his legacy precedes him through the success of those 10 offices. So for me, I don't think I'll ever have 10 offices. I don't even know if I'll ever have my own brand. They're aspirations that aren't as important to me as they are to others. But if I was not here tomorrow, I'd want everyone to say Simon did his best. He set a good example. He created an opportunity that made us the best version of us. And actually, I wanted to touch on, because you asked a really good question. Sorry, where did I put this phone? Can I just quickly, because you actually made me really think about this.
I hope you don't answer. You're about to say the last question I was going to ask you.
No, okay, so you got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Is it the question? I'm going to say what I'm going to say, but
yeah, perfect. No, you go.
So my last question for you, SC, is when we're on the phone, you mentioned when burnout arose, you asked yourself, if I had to summarize my career into one word or one sentence, what would it be? And you got stumped and you couldn't answer it.
Correct.
So I'm going to put that back on you now. If you were to summarize your career into a word or a sentence, how would you do it?
The word would be journey.
Journey?
Yeah. And you really caught me off guard on that. I was actually like, can I swear? Like I was just like, fuck. Like how do I answer this question? And you made me think about every moment from sleeping under the desk at 𝗬𝗂𝗧 at 21 years of age and not even being able to afford to put fuel in a motorbike, and everyone knows how cheap it is to fuel a motorbike, to winning my first project pitch, to selling my first $10 million property, to opening the office, to seeing our team succeed. Like you literally open this floodgate of memories when you asked that question. I was like, holy shit. And I was like, journey for me, because that's what it's been. It's been exactly that. I think if I was to summarize it in a sentence, it's given me an ability to fulfill a dream that I had from day one. Right. And that was something that I always wanted. There was 3 things I wanted to do in life. I wanted to be successful in terms of performance. I wanted to be successful financially so I could look after my family and my surrounding family. And those 2 things have been met. And the third thing, which I don't think I've quite got there yet, but it's a work in progress, is I want to make a positive impact that actually helps change people's lives. And I think we're on track to that. But in a point of vulnerability,
I think you have.
Well, I appreciate that. The structure's there, but I'm going to say this. You can give Simon Caulfield Max Verstappen's Formula 1 car, but if he doesn't know how to drive it, that car's not going to get off the start line. And I want this office to not be the tokenistic presentation of what you see, which is some really great facilities. I want it to be the embodiment of when people walk out of here, you can actually go, yeah, that person must work at Place Kangaroo Point, because they're fit, they're healthy, they're happy, and they're successful. And I think if that's where I can leave people over the next 5-10 years, financially for me, it doesn't really change. And I mean that in the most humble and respectful way. Like I'm here to be I'm here to succeed in my personal ways because I'm capable of doing that as a real estate agent. But as a business owner, right, and my career, as I said, has evolved, it's about leaving a lasting impact on people. And if I can do that, we're not going to be judged for how many acrylic crystal awards we get every year, from the Place Awards. We're going to be judged by the happiness, the success, the financial freedom that people have created by working inside this organisation. And that extends to the ecosystem that we have within this 𝗦𝗶𝗺cie building. So I'm pumped to see it through.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen, Simon Caulfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.